now talking about the thing you were mentioning earlier is the basics books. They've said that the transcriptionists were evil and got their commas and punctuation marks wrong or whatever. Maybe they've done a good job of these new books, I don't know, I haven't read them. But they're forcing people, well, heavy sales pressure on people to buy all these books for I don't know how many $1,000s. The International Justice Chief is actually pressuring people who've been declared suppressive. If you want to come back to the church, you've got to donate lots of copies of these to many libraries. Then we might think about letting you do your conditions to come back to the church, or we might not. So that was the thing you were mentioning. That's the latest thing.
Because I remember they were talking about things like rearranged pages, whole sections that had been placed in there or taken from something else and placed in there artificially, and that they said like it was like almost one editor almost, and it just said like, oh, let's just add stuff. And I wondered if you've reviewed that compared to the old stuff and whether or not that was true or it makes any more sense.
I haven't read the new basic books. There's been a little bit of commentary about it, but for me and for the vast majority in the Freezone, the books that Hubbard wrote, the books that he had under his name for however long, he's 30, 40 years that he was, in fact he wrote his first book 1950, he died in 1986, just 36 years of these original books being available with no complaint about the author himself. So we consider those, that's the words of Mr. Hubbard. That's good enough for us. It's not good enough for the guys in there.
I thought it was strange that they went 50 years without spotting these errors, and they all of a sudden came out with an entire new line of books and say, oh yeah, we improved them, we corrected them, we caught all the errors, and you got to buy them all over again. And they even comments is like, oh, don't even think about the price. You'll hate yourself or something afterwards for even mentioning that to yourself, about the price. As a Freezoner, does the material include within the Wall of Fire the space opera story?
Yeah.
And what's your take on the space opera story?
Well, I've done OT2 and 3. In fact, I've done them both twice.
Okay.
And I had very good gains from these levels. Great stuff. The actual OT3 story, I don't think is really an important part of it. The actual techniques of what you do on the levels work very well for most people. Work very well for me. All the people I know in the Freezone who've done these in the Freezone, it worked well for them. As far as I know, most people who did them in the church, it worked well for them. I've met recently some people who worked with Hubbard himself and they did these levels and they found them workable. The actual OT3 story, that's not an important part. I don't even actually believe it myself, but the level still gave me a lot of gains.
Yeah, well, what do you think that was included in the first place? I mean, if it doesn't seem to have any bearing.
That's a good question. I don't really have a good answer for that. I don't know. Perhaps it was part of the sales idea from Mr. Hubbard. I don't know, but the thing is, doing the levels works. That was the important thing for me.
Considering you don't believe in the whole space opera story, how does that fit into the idea of clearing clusters and thetans from the body?
Right. Well, this is a concept that is not unique to Scientology. It is probably one of the most common religious philosophical beliefs in the world. That there are entities, demons, ghosts, something believed by most cultures in most of the world. And if you stopped 100 people in San Francisco street, you'd probably find a high percentage of them believe in some sort of demons, entities, ghosts, or whatever. And that's an area that bothers one. It's good to address it.
When you clear thetans and clusters, the idea is that when you do it, you can relieve yourself of emotional stress, physical pain, and sometimes even like illness. I mean, I could see you ridding yourself of maybe emotional stress, but what about illness and physical defects within the body?
I've heard that has happened. For me, I wasn't ill in the first place when I did my OT2 and 3, so there wasn't any illness to handle. But there's a very good friend of mine. She had a very severe car accident many years ago, and it left her with a problem that if she was ever in a cold weather, she had a lot of pain in her chest. She then did some further knots sort of things. She, by the way, been doing knots for many years, more than 2 decades, and nothing had solved this. She then had some knots case supervised by a class 12 in the free zone. And one day she lives in England, as I do, and one day she was walking out and the ground was frost covered, and she suddenly realised this pain from being in cold weather had gone. That was from doing solo knots.
How much of the claims of increased IQ, resistance to illness and physical injury like accidents, how much, do you believe that happens when you become a clear?
Right. Well, you know, there's certain benefits from being clear. You know, one is able to handle life better, be more capable of living without getting stressed out. But if you're clear, you can still be what's called subject to suppressive influences. In other words, you can suffer stress.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a boss that controls your life to a certain extent and he's nasty and mean to you, and you can't leave the job because you need the money, that's a stressful situation. That can still affect you even if you're clear. You can probably handle it better if you're clear, or maybe handle it perfectly. But you could do that with training, or you don't have to be able to do Scientology at all to handle such situations. But there are difficult situations in life like that that can affect just about anybody.
Because you're clear and you're less stressed in general, does that mean that you're less susceptible to disease or like illnesses or accidents?
I can speak about myself personally here. I've had about one cold or flu in the last 15 years or so. That was about it. I haven't had any serious accidents for so long I can't remember. But that's just me. I haven't done a survey of everyone else who's clear, so I don't know. But generally the people I know who are clear are doing well in life and happy and so on and so forth. In the church, I don't think that's the same. They're under a lot of suppression from the management and the organisation. And I feel sorry for them. I'd like to see them rescued and taken out of this organisation, because they can get what they want, their bridge. They can get out in the free zone without the stress of having to have severe pressure on selling crush sell, hard sell. They don't run the risk of having friends and family disconnect from them if they go in the free zone. So that's a message I'd like the people inside this building to know. There is the tech outside here, there is the bridge, and the downside isn't there.
For the materials to be learned within the church, you have to pay massive amounts of money for not only the materials but for the auditing sessions and everything like that. What is the situation for taking auditing courses and getting the book within the free zone? Is there any kind of donation?
Yeah, you know, if you get someone who wishes to spend their time one-on-one with you, auditing you, you'll be expected to pay for it. Sometimes you can get it for free, sometimes for barter. If you have people who are studying to be auditing, they'll give you free student auditing. That might still happen in the church, I don't know, but I don't think they encourage it. But yeah, like, you know, if you take someone's time one-on-one, you know, you have 10 hours of processing over a couple of days, you'd normally pay for it, just as you would if you had a bricklayer or a plumber or a carpenter work for 10 hours for you.
So
this is just the economic realities of living in this city and anywhere else, really.
Alright, so are you saying like if you audit a person and they audit you, it's mutually exclusive, so you kind of both get something out of it, you don't really need to pay for it?
Oh right, if you're co-auditing, if you study and then co-audit, you don't have to pay. You know, you're both helping each other, turn and turn about. You might, you would ideally have a very experienced tech person as a case supervisor who can help keep you on the rails and straighten you out if you sort of make mistakes or something. And that would be not very expensive. That would be, you know, for every hour of auditing, it might be a couple of dollars for a case supervisor to look over things.
My job here is done.